My elder brother arrested me on Christmas Eve before my entire family. I believed my life was done until a homeless man I'd once aided entered court, stripped off a disguise, and uncovered the truth that crushed them all. My father's face blanched instantly. Can you imagine having everything you love ripped away in one shocking, brutal instant by the very people you trusted most? Can you imagine staring into the eyes of your own father and brother, watching them destroy your life and realizing they didn't care at all? This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about finding hope in the darkest places and rebuilding everything from the ashes. It was Christmas Eve, a few years back. The house was humming with family, smelling like roasted meat and cinnamon cookies. My heart, Nathan Reyes, a simple warehouse technician from Detroit, was bursting with pure joy. This was it, the perfect Christmas. Everyone was there. My mom, Camila, an accountant whose smile could warm any room. My dad, Vincent, stern but always at the head of the table, his presence undeniable. And we were all waiting for my older brother, Jackson, the family hero. A police officer with a shining badge. "Honey, this is the first year everyone's here," Mom whispered, squeezing my hand, her eyes shining. "It's going to be so much fun." I grinned, nodding, feeling that deep, quiet happiness that only family can bring. Then the siren started. At first, we all just laughed. "That must be Jackson," my Aunt Maria exclaimed, thinking he was making a grand entrance, maybe bringing some colleagues to celebrate. But the sirens grew louder, closer, tearing through the cozy air. Through the window, I saw it. A patrol car screeching to a halt, red and blue lights flashing like angry, accusing eyes against the falling snow. My heart hammered. Something felt wrong. This wasn't Jackson's usual theatrical arrival. He stepped out, his face stone cold. No smile. Behind him, several other officers, flashlights cutting through the gloom. The cheers died. The laughter froze. The warm atmosphere in our living room turned instantly icy. Jackson pushed open the door, his polished black boots clicking on the red Christmas rug. His eyes, sharp and menacing, scanned the room, then locked onto me. My breath hitched. "Everyone listen up," he announced, his voice flat, emotionless. "I received an anonymous tip that Nathan Reyes is in possession of illegal substances. I have to investigate and clear this up." It was like a bomb exploded. Silence. Just a choked sob from a corner of the room. My family stared at me, then at each other, their faces a mix of confusion and pure fear. Anonymous tip? Illegal drugs? Me? My brain simply stopped working. "What are you talking about, Jackson? Are you joking?" I stammered, my voice trembling, barely audible. He didn't blink. Didn't smile. "Nathan, come with me to the car for a search. It's procedure to prove you're innocent." I shook my head, frantically, rooted to the spot. "No, I didn't do anything. Who made the anonymous call? This is a mistake." Mom gripped my hand, her face white. "Jackson, what are you saying? Nathan would never." But he just held up a hand. "Mom, let me do my job. If it's a misunderstanding, even better." "Nathan, come." Murmurs erupted. Relatives whispered on Christmas Eve. "Nathan? He's so kind." My father stood up, his face grim, and to my horror, he just nodded at Jackson, a silent approval that ripped through me. Jackson gently pushed me toward the door. My legs felt like lead. The whole family spilled out into the snowy front yard. Neighbors, drawn by the flashing lights, gathered at the gate, pointing, staring. Our yard became a stage. "Check Nathan's car first," Jackson ordered his officers. They swarmed my old car. Then, a triumphant shout, "God." They pulled out small, opaque white packets. They glittered eerily under the flashlights. "Care to explain what this white powder is?" One officer sneered. "It's not mine. I don't know anything about it." My voice broke. But then they found more, stuffed into the pockets of the jacket I was wearing. The flashing lights made them look like tiny monsters. My family watched in stunned silence. The whispers started again, louder now, venomous. How could Nathan do that? He seemed so gentle, so kind. Each word was a knife twisting in my gut. I had never done anything wrong. Why was this happening? Who set me up? Mom covered her face, sobbing, her shoulders shaking. Nathan, my son, could never do something so terrible. She rushed forward to hug me, but an officer gently pushed her back. I wanted to scream, to tell her it was a mistake, but my hands trembled. My father, Vincent, stood motionless by the car, his eyes empty, staring into nothing. Dad, I didn't do anything. Someone framed me. I stammered, my voice lost in the cold wind. He said nothing, just leaned on the car as if none of this concerned him. My heart ached sharply. Dad, why are you silent? Why aren't you defending me? My pleas drowned in the freezing air. The joyful Christmas laughter was gone, replaced by malicious whispers and camera phones. My humiliation, a spectacle. Jackson stepped forward, handcuffs in his hand. Nathan Reyes, You are under arrest for possession and distribution of illegal narcotics. His voice was utterly emotionless. Jackson, you have to believe me. I didn't do this. This is a conspiracy. I cried, struggling, but they pinned me against the car, clicking the cuffs around my wrists, cold and metallic. Mom rushed forward again, screaming, Jackson, you can't do this to your own brother. Nathan is your little brother. She clung to my jacket, her tears soaking my shoulder. Relatives tried to intervene, but the tension was suffocating. Then, my father stood straight. Camila, be quiet. Let the law do its job. Mom stared at him in shock, then released me, stepping back, tears streaming. My blood ran cold. Why would Dad say that? Why was my brother doing this? I gave up. Let them push me into the patrol car. As it pulled away, taking me from the warm house into the dark, horrifying Christmas night, I saw Mom collapse. My father stood there, his gaze as cold and empty as stone. Someone had reported me. Someone had planted the drugs. But why did Jackson believe it instantly? He was my brother. Sitting there, cuffed, I racked my brain. Who? Why? Jackson, my hero, the person I'd looked up to since childhood. Was he forced? No. His face had been completely cold. No hesitation. Was the anonymous call just an excuse? The car drove through familiar Detroit streets. I thought about my life. Simple. Stable. Kind, everyone said. Why had fate thrown me into this hell? Cold sweat poured out despite the freezing winter. The police station. A grim, gray building. They yanked me out, hands gripping me so tight I stumbled. Move it. Walk now, an officer barked. Inside, thick air, burnt coffee sweat. They shoved me into a holding cell. For gray concrete walls, a metal cot, a filthy toilet. The iron door slammed shut. The lock clicked like a final verdict. I collapsed onto the cot, cuffed, mind spinning. Christmas dinner, laughter, then sirens, flashing lights, those monstrous drug packets. Who framed me? Where did that anonymous call come from? Jackson. My own brother. Why? I shook my head, but the chaos crashed over me like violent waves. That night stretched on forever. I shivered, curled up. Someone screamed from a nearby cell. Mom. She must be sobbing. Dad's silence. Jackson, my hero, now my tormentor. Hot tears stung my cold cheeks. I prayed for a nightmare, a wake-up. But the next morning, reality was even colder. The clink of the lock. 2 officers hauled me up, cuffed me, marched me to an interrogation room. It was colder than the cell. Old table, metal chairs, a one-way mirror. 2 detectives were waiting. They read my file. Nathan Reyes, 26, warehouse technician, arrested for possession and distribution of illegal narcotics. The camera's red light blinked like a demon's eye. They laid out the packets. I didn't do anything. Those aren't mine. Someone planted them on me. I blurted, my voice shaking but determined. I told them everything. The Christmas party, the tip, the search. They just smirked. Everyone who comes in here says the same thing, the bearded one sneered. Then the questions came like bullets. Who are your partners? Where did you get this stuff? How many times have you sold? Confess. Cooperate, and we'll go easy. I shook my head wildly, sweat soaking my shirt. I don't know. I don't have any partners. This is the first time I've ever seen those things. The questions grew aggressive, suffocating. My head spun. The room whirled. I wanted to scream, to slam the table, but my hands were cuffed. I could only sit there. Suddenly, the door opened. Jackson walked in. He stood behind the detectives, arms crossed, face as cold as ever. Jackson, I didn't do this, I whispered, desperately hoping he would save me. But he just looked at me. Nathan, confess, cooperate, and you'll get a lighter sentence. If you don't, you'll go away for life. I stared at my brother, tears spilling over. What are you saying? I was framed. You're my brother. You're supposed to believe me. I reminded him of our childhood, how he protected me from bullies. But he didn't flinch. His eyes were stone. The evidence is clear, Nathan. Don't make this worse. He turned and walked out, leaving me completely shattered. They dragged me back to the cell. Why was my brother doing this? Was it possible Jackson knew something? Or was he forced? No. His face had shown no hesitation. Fear crept in. I curled up, trembling. The next day, visitors. Mom, I thought. But through the thick glass, it was both my parents. Mom, eyes red and swollen, hands shaking. Dad, face cold as ever. Mom, I didn't do this. I whispered into the phone. But Dad cut me off, his voice harsh, venomous. Nathan, you've been nothing but a burden your whole life. Now you've disgraced the entire family. Confess. So we don't have to carry the shame anymore. I froze. As if slapped. Dad, how can you say that? I didn't do anything. He shook his head. You've always been weak, always needing someone to protect you. You messed up. Own it. Don't drag the whole family down. His voice was ice. No concern. No encouragement. Dad, I'm your son. Mom burst into tears. Nathan, I believe you. I'll find a way to help you. I'll hire a lawyer, she whispered, but Dad immediately shut her down. Camila, the evidence is overwhelming. He has to face the consequences. He pulled her up, not letting her say another word, and led her out. I watched them go, tears pouring down my face. Utterly, completely alone. The news spread like wildfire. Police officer's younger brother arrested for drugs on Christmas dinner. Photos of me, handcuffed, went viral. Friends, neighbors, coworkers, everyone turned away. No calls. No messages. I imagined the whispers, the pointing. In that cramped cell, I felt completely broken. I knew I was innocent, but how could I prove it? The evidence was airtight. My own brother's testimony. My old life destroyed. On the second night, real terror set in. Lying on that freezing cot, listening to the wind howl, I thought I might never get out. This was the end. Prison. Disgrace. Loneliness. Tears of pure despair. I prayed for a miracle. The days passed like an unending nightmare. A young public defender, fresh out of law school, promised he'd do his best. We'll focus on that anonymous tip, he said, but his voice lacked confidence. How could we win against caught red-handed evidence and my own brother's testimony? A week later, the preliminary hearing. So fast. I wasn't ready. The quantity of drugs was substantial, enough to classify me as a serious offender. And Jackson being a cop turned it into a media circus. Family torn apart by drugs. Officer arrests own brother on Christmas Eve. The headlines screamed. When they escorted me to the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Voices shouted my name. My heart pounded. Cold sweat. Why was everything happening so quickly? The courtroom was large but suffocating. The judge, a stern old man, sat high above. I sat in the defendant's chair, loosely cuffed, in a gray prison jumpsuit, feeling like a caged animal. My lawyer nervously flipped papers. The prosecutor, a sharp middle-aged woman, stood, her voice like a blade. She projected images of the evidence. Those packets gleaming. The defendant, Nathan Reyes, was caught in possession of a large quantity of illegal narcotics, she declared. She read Jackson's report, my own brother's words, meticulously detailed. The anonymous tip, the search, the drugs, the officer's testimony. All perfectly aligned, as if scripted. I felt cornered. No way out. Every photo, every word, a brick in the prison wall being built around me. My lawyer's counterarguments were painfully weak. The anonymous call was suspicious. Someone could have planted the drugs. No direct evidence of intent to distribute. The prosecutor cut him off, caught red-handed. That is the clearest evidence possible. Everything tilted against me. The room tittered. Every time I tried to speak, it made things worse. I didn't do anything. Someone put those packets in my car in my pockets. She shot back. That is the standard denial of a first-time offender. The room laughed. My face burned. My lawyer tugged my sleeve. Don't say anything more. The trial dragged on. Endless questions. Mounting evidence. Fear growing inside me like a tumor. Then sentencing day. The courtroom was packed. Reporters. Whispers buzzing. The air thick with tension. I sat there, trembling. Jackson and my father, Vincent, were in the front row, faces cold as ice. They wouldn't meet my eyes. Just leaned in, whispering. Didn't they feel any pain? Why weren't they fighting for me? My heart ached. My pillars, now strangers. Beside them, Mom, hunched over, sobbing into her hands. She looked years older, her pain cutting through me like a knife. In that heavy moment, as the judge banged his gavel for order, I bowed my head, trying to breathe. Then, by chance, I glanced toward the very back row. And froze. There, among the strangers, sat the familiar old homeless man from the park. Silver beard, tattered coat. He looked up, met my eyes, and smiled, a gentle, warm smile in that cold courtroom. He gave a small wave, as if to say, "It'll be all right, kid." His eyes were full of kindness, just like all the times we'd met. Memories flooded back. The park. My escape. Giving him coins, an old jacket, coffee. "You've got a good heart," he'd rasped. "Don't let fear win." I'd never even asked his name. Just the old man from the park. And now here he was, in the middle of my fateful trial. What could he possibly change? He was just a homeless man. The courtroom buzzed. Reporters scribbled. The judge sat, gavel. Ready. Looking at him, I felt with absolute clarity that my life was about to end. No one in this room could save me. The air felt heavy, crushing my chest. Every stare, every rustle, every tense breath made me feel small, powerless, suffocating. In that moment, I understood something even more painful than the sentence about to be pronounced. I was utterly, completely alone, drowned by fabricated evidence, betrayed by my own blood. The second that gavel came down, my life would be buried forever. Just as the judge cleared his throat, ready to pronounce the words that would seal my fate, the entire courtroom held its breath. The air grew so thick it felt compressed. All whispering stopped. Only the rustle of papers and a faint cough remained. Reporters sat frozen, pencils poised. I glanced at the front row. Vincent and Jackson sat there, eyes cold, faint, secretive smirks playing on their lips. No grief. No tears. They looked as though they already knew the outcome, as if this sentencing were merely the final formality in a play they themselves had scripted. My own father and brother, smiling? Why weren't they fighting for me? That betrayal cut deeper than any knife. I bowed my head lower, my cuffed hands shaking uncontrollably, waiting for the words, guilty, imprisonment. Words that would obliterate my life. Then a powerful, unexpected shout exploded from the back of the room, startling everyone. Stop. I have proof that he is innocent. The raspy, determined voice sliced through the silence like a bomb. The entire room whipped around. Murmurs rose like a tidal wave. I jerked my head up, stunned, heart pounding wildly. It was the homeless old man from the park. He had leapt to his feet, one arm raised high, silver beard trembling, tattered coat flapping. His face flushed with emotion, his eyes burned with resolve. Why was he doing this? I couldn't understand. I'd helped him, yes, but this was a courtroom, not the park. He was a stranger. How dare he? A tiny spark of hope flickered, but then doubt rushed in. What could he possibly have? Vincent and Jackson spun around, faces turning crimson with rage, eyes murderous. Jackson shot to his feet first, flashing his police badge. This is a disruption of court proceedings. Officers, restrain that man and remove him immediately. Several uniformed officers moved toward the old man. The room erupted into chaos. Reporters snapped photos. Whispers turned into a roar. Mom lifted her tear-streaked face, staring in bewildered shock. I sat frozen. Jackson, my own brother, was trying to silence the one person who might save me. He was panicking. His face had gone pale. But the old man did not flinch. He stood tall, his voice calm and steady. Hold it. You cannot arrest me before I reveal the truth. Then, to everyone's astonishment, he slowly peeled off the fake silver beard, shrugged off the ragged coat, and tossed it onto the bench. He wiped his face with a handkerchief, removing layers of dirt and a masterful disguise that had hidden him for years. The courtroom fell into a stunned, breathless silence. The face revealed was not an old man's at all. A middle-aged man with short, cropped hair, sharp, intelligent eyes, and features I never thought I'd see again. When Vincent and Jackson saw that face, the blood drained from theirs. My father lurched to his feet, mouth working soundlessly. Jackson staggered backward, ashen, his police badge slipping from his fingers and clattering to the floor. Tears burst from my eyes, instantly uncontrollable, as recognition hit me like a thunderbolt. It was Uncle Jameson Reyes, Vincent's younger brother. My uncle who had vanished 3 years ago, presumed dead. We'd even held a symbolic funeral. The uncle I had adored as a child, who told adventure stories, taught me to fish, shielded me from Dad's harsh words. And he was the old man from the park I had been giving money to. All those evenings when he listened to me complain about work, about family, offering gentle wisdom, Nathan, you have a good heart. Never let anyone take that from you. I had never recognized him. The disguise had been flawless. But those kind eyes, now I understood. He had been watching over me all this time, protecting me from afar. Uncle Jameson, is it really you? I sobbed aloud, my voice breaking. Jameson looked at me, smiled warmly, then turned to the court, his voice ringing clear and strong. I am Jameson Reyes, brother of Vincent Reyes and blood uncle to Nathan Reyes. I have been missing for 3 years, but I have returned today with evidence that proves my nephew is completely innocent. I demand the right to testify and present that evidence before this court. The courtroom exploded. Reporters scrambling, cameras flashing like lightning. The judge pounded his gavel. Order! Order! His own face was stunned. He ordered immediate identity verification. Files were pulled. Within minutes, he nodded gravely. Identity confirmed. Jameson Reyes is who he claims to be. Officers, stand down. Mr. Reyes, please approach the witness stand and present your evidence. At those words, Vincent and Jackson turned ghostly white, hands shaking uncontrollably. They tried to sit calmly, but panic blazed in their eyes. My father whispered frantically to Jackson, his face flushed and sweating. Jackson gripped the armrests until his knuckles went white, staring at Uncle Jameson as though staring at a ghost. I sat there, heart thundering, tears still streaming. Why had Uncle been alive all this time? Why the disguise? What evidence did he have? My mother was sobbing louder now, but they were tears of joy and disbelief. Jameson, my brother-in-law, is alive. The entire courtroom held its breath again as Jameson walked to the center aisle, holding an old leather satchel, ready to unveil the truth. Uncle Jameson strode to the witness stand, each footstep firm in the dead silent courtroom. He set the old leather satchel on the evidence table, opening it slowly, deliberately drawing out the tension. From inside, he pulled a tiny USB drive, a thick stack of yellow documents, and a sleek black external hard drive. The courtroom instantly erupted in murmurs. Reporters scrambled. Cameras flashed. The judge banged his gavel. "Silence, Mr. Jameson, you may proceed." I stared at my uncle, heart pounding. A fragile spark of hope flickered. "Please, uncle, save me." Jameson took a deep breath. His voice rang out, clear, steady, and powerful, like a seasoned detective. "Your Honor, 3 years ago, I was a private investigator working alongside the Detroit police to dismantle the city's largest drug trafficking ring. During that investigation, I discovered that the people behind it were none other than my own brother, Vincent Reyes, and my nephew, Jackson Reyes." Those words detonated like a bomb. The room fell deathly quiet, then exploded into chaos. Vincent shot to his feet, face crimson. "He's insane." "Lies." The judge roared, "Silence, Mr. Reyes, or you will be removed." Jackson stayed seated, face drained of color, knuckles white. I stared at them, heartbroken. My father and brother. Drugs. I couldn't process it. Uncle Jameson continued, calm, but unrelenting. "When I was about to report my findings, Vincent discovered what I knew. He threatened to kill me to keep me quiet. I had no choice. I faked my disappearance to save my life. I disguised myself as a homeless man, lived on the streets of Detroit, and kept gathering evidence from the shadows." He paused, looked the judge in the eye, then turned to me with warmth in his gaze. Suddenly, everything clicked. All those evenings in the park, when the old man listened to me talk about work, about family. "Nathan, you have a good heart." He had been protecting me, watching Vincent and Jackson the whole time. Tears welled up again, shock, gratitude, pain. 3 years on the streets, alone, just for this moment. To prove it, he plugged the USB into the projector. The huge screen lit up with grainy but unmistakable footage. The night before Christmas Eve. Jackson, my own brother, sneaking up to my car in the driveway. He opened the trunk, placed the white packets inside, then rummaged through my jacket hanging in the garage, stuffing more packets into the pockets. "This is video I recorded in secret," Uncle Jameson explained. Jackson planted the drugs in Nathan's car and jacket the night before the arrest. Jackson dropped his head into his hands, shoulders shaking. Vincent shook his head frantically, stammering, "That's not me in the video." But the evidence was undeniable. I watched the screen, my chest tightening. My brother. He framed me. Why? It didn't stop there. Uncle Jameson played an audio file from the hard drive. Vincent's cold, unmistakable voice filled the courtroom. "Sacrificing Nathan is fine. As long as we're safe, he's weak. He won't fight back." Then Jackson's voice. "One anonymous tip is all it takes." The room froze in horror. The prosecutor, the sharp woman who had torn into me, sat pale and speechless. The judge's eyebrows shot up. Every eye turned to Vincent and Jackson. They were unraveling. Vincent jumped up again, frantic. "That's fabricated. Someone doctored the recording." The judge thundered, "Be quiet. You are adding contempt of court. Sit down." Vincent collapsed, sweating profusely. Jackson just stared at the floor. When the planting footage was replayed in slow motion, he buried his face completely. He knew there was no escape. Uncle Jameson pressed on, his voice growing stronger. He presented secret reports from the document stack. "Vincent and Jackson are currently under federal investigation for their drug network." To divert attention, they decided to sacrifice Nathan, an easy scapegoat, someone gentle who wouldn't resist. He submitted bank records of money laundering through Vincent's auto shop, massive transfers, fake invoices, hidden accounts. Nathan was framed from the beginning, he concluded, his voice trembling with emotion. "My nephew is innocent, and these documents will show everyone the truth." I broke down completely, sobbing harder than ever, shattered by the realization that the people I loved most had thrown me to the wolves to save themselves. Every happy family memory burned away in that moment. Dinners. Dad talking about the shop. Jackson bragging about arrests. All of it a lie. I slumped in my chair, crying uncontrollably. How could they do this to me? In the gallery, Mom let out a wail, her hands shaking over her mouth as the truth crashed down. She stared at Vincent and Jackson in pure horror. The husband and son she had devoted her life to had sacrificed her gentlest child to protect themselves. She had cooked for them, stayed up nights, mended Vincent's clothes. Now she sat shattered. I wanted to run to her, to say, "Mom, it's okay now. I'll be all right." But the guards held me back. Her pain doubled mine. My heart felt crushed. Then the prosecutor stood, her voice trembling. "Your Honor, in light of this new evidence, I move to stay the sentencing of Nathan Reyes and request the immediate arrest of Vincent Reyes and Jackson Reyes for investigation." The judge nodded gravely. Motion granted. Officers, take them into custody now. The courtroom erupted. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. Officers rushed the front row, cuffing Vincent and Jackson right there. Vincent struggled wildly. This is a conspiracy. I'm innocent. But they forced him down and dragged him away. Jackson didn't resist. He just muttered toward Uncle Jameson, How are you still alive? They were hauled out amid shouts and blinding flashes. I collapsed against my chair, unable to process what was happening. After endless despair, the freezing jail nights, my father's blame, my brother's cold eyes, the vicious public gossip, the truth had finally turned in my favor. I cried, but now the tears were mixed with relief and unbearable pain. Uncle Jameson walked over, reached through the bailiff, and placed a hand on my shoulder. Nathan, you're free. Mom rushed forward the moment the cuffs came off, throwing her arms around me. My baby, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you, she whispered through sobs. I held her tight, crying into her shoulder. Reporters swarmed, questions flying, but everything felt like a dream. The betrayal from my own blood cut so deep, I didn't know how I would ever go on. But at least the nightmare, the prison nightmare, was over. Or had a new one just begun? The next morning, everything unfolded like a dream. I was still in my cell, head foggy from yesterday's chaos, when the lock clinked. An officer stepped in. His voice was flat. Nathan Reyes, you're being released. I lifted my head, certain I'd misheard. You've been cleared, he explained briefly. Federal investigators had verified every byte on Uncle Jameson's USB and hard drive. No edits, no fakes. The prosecutor had filed an immediate motion to dismiss all charges against me. No doubt left. I was innocent. They released me on the spot. My heart pounded. Just yesterday, I thought my life was over. Now, freedom was waiting. I stood on shaky legs and followed the officer out. The police station still smelled of burnt coffee and old paper, but this time, I wasn't a prisoner. The front doors swung open. Harsh Detroit winter sunlight poured in, blinding after days of darkness. I stepped outside, gaunt, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, dark circles under my eyes, skin pale from despair. Waiting on the steps was Uncle Jameson, no longer wearing the fake beard or tattered coat. He just looked exhausted and worried. The face of a man who had been running for years. He stood with his hands in his pockets, staring at me. I froze for a second, unable to believe this was real. Uncle Jameson, the uncle I thought was dead. The old man from the park who had been beside me all along. Then, like a dam breaking, I ran to him and threw my arms around him, sobbing uncontrollably. Uncle James, thank you for clearing my name, I whispered, my voice breaking, tears soaking his shoulder. Finally, someone had believed me, saved me, pulled me out of hell. He hugged me tight, rubbing my back. Nathan, I'm so sorry I let you suffer this long. It's over now, kid. We stood there, holding each other, crying like two lost children who had finally found their way home. We went back to the familiar house, the same one where Christmas dinner had shattered. Mom had come home earlier. Her eyes were still red when she saw us. She threw her arms around Uncle Jameson. Brother, how are you alive? Why didn't you come back sooner? He gave her a sad smile. Sister, I had to wait for the right moment. Now, I'll tell you everything. We sat in the living room, the Christmas tree still standing, a painful reminder of that terrible night. Uncle Jameson poured water for everyone, took a deep breath, and began to speak in a low, steady voice, like opening a secret book that had gathered dust for 3 years. 3 years ago, he said, while working as a private investigator assisting the Detroit police on a major drug case, I started tracing suspicious transactions. He followed shipments, bugged phones, and slowly discovered that the people running one branch of the ring were Vincent, his own brother, my father, and Jackson, his nephew. My brother, I couldn't believe my eyes, he said, his voice trembling. Vincent was laundering money through the auto shop. Jackson was using his badge to bury evidence and protect the operation. My chest tightened. Dad? The stern, honest man? Jackson, the family hero? When Uncle Jameson was about to turn everything over to the feds, Vincent found out. That night, Uncle overheard a conversation through a device he'd planted. Vincent and Jackson calmly discussed how to get rid of him. Hire a hitman, stage an accident. Anything. They talked about it like the weather, Uncle said bitterly. Vincent said Jameson knows too much. We have to take him out before he talks. My fists clenched. My nails dug into my palms. My own father and brother had been willing to kill their own blood for profit. Were they monsters all along? I remembered Dad scolding me for being weak, Jackson mocking me for not being tough. Now I understood. They chose me as the sacrifice for exactly those reasons. Tears rolled down my face again. Mom pulled me close, crying too. Knowing some high-ranking officers had already been bought, Uncle couldn't safely report it. That same night, he got his wife and daughter out. I used every trick I knew, he said, his eyes distant. Multiple vehicles, cross-state routes, fake names, staying off cameras. I got them into temporary witness protection in another state, a place no one could find. He came back to Detroit alone to keep gathering evidence, waiting for the safest moment to strike. I couldn't let that network keep destroying lives. But Vincent had put a price on his head. He was ambushed, shot in the shoulder. I hid in the woods, patched myself up, then went completely dark so I wouldn't endanger my wife and daughter. Unable to return to a normal life, he chose the perfect invisibility. A homeless man. No one notices the homeless. He lived near Vincent and Jackson's routes, slept on park benches, but never stopped watching. He planted bugs, filmed, secretly documented every deal. I remembered those evenings with the old man in the park. I wanted to be close to you, Nathan, he whispered. I knew you were gentle, and I was terrified they'd target you. My heart warmed even as it ached. He had sacrificed everything, his family, his health, his identity, just to bring justice. While gathering evidence, he discovered Jackson was under fresh federal scrutiny. The ring was about to be exposed. They needed a fall guy to misdirect the investigation. From the recordings, Uncle heard Vincent give the order. If we have to sacrifice someone, it's Nathan. He's weak, he's kind, and he won't fight back. Hearing those words, ice ran down my spine. I had never felt so small, so disposable in the eyes of the people who raised me. Why? Why me, Uncle? I whispered, my voice cracking. He took my hand. Because you trusted them completely, Nathan, and they knew it. Uncle Jameson knew I was the next target. He tried to warn me indirectly in the park. Family isn't always what you think, or be careful even with those closest to you. I remembered those exact words. I thought they were just the ramblings of a lonely old man. He waited for the one moment it would be safe to reveal himself, my trial, when the media, the prosecutor, and the court were all present, and Vincent had no chance to silence him first. I had to wait until it was safest, he said, his eyes red. If I came out earlier, they might have killed me, and you'd still be convicted. When Uncle Jameson finished, the room fell into heavy silence. Mom held me tighter, tears falling silently. I stared out the window at the soft Detroit snowfall, but inside me, a storm raged. 3 years of disappearance, a story of sacrifice, danger, and quiet, fierce love. Uncle had risked his life to save mine. And me? I had lost my family, or rather, realized the family I thought I had never truly existed. Dad and Jackson were in jail. Mom was shattered. I squeezed his hand. Thank you, Uncle. I'm not alone anymore. He smiled, patting my shoulder. Never again, Nathan. But the silence was heavy, because we both knew these wounds would take a very long time to heal. My life had turned a new page. Yet the shadow of the past still loomed large. A little while later, while the air in the room was still heavy, Uncle Jameson slowly stood up and reached for the same old leather satchel he had carried since yesterday. Uncle, is there something else you haven't told us? I asked softly, my voice still trembling. He nodded. His eyes weren't filled with pain this time. They were shining with something else. Hope. He opened the satchel and carefully pulled out a thick packet of documents, sealed with red wax and tightly bound with cord. The pages looked old but well preserved. He placed it on the coffee table. Nathan, this is the trust fund your grandfather, Milton Reyes, left specifically for you. For the past 5 years, I have been secretly managing it, exactly as he instructed. I froze. A trust fund from Grandpa? Grandpa Milton Reyes had died 5 years ago. He was a quiet man, but always had a strange magnetic pull on me, the only real emotional anchor I ever had. Why would he leave me a trust fund? And why had Uncle Jameson been managing it? My trembling fingers brushed the papers. Mom, sitting beside me, widened her eyes. Milton? He never said a word to me about this. Uncle Jameson nodded, sitting next to me. Right before he passed, your grandfather called me to his bedside and entrusted me with this fund. He said, only give it to Nathan when he's been pushed to the absolute edge. When no one else is left to protect him. When he truly needs a completely new life. I promised him I would keep it secret. And for 5 years, I managed the investments so it would grow. His words exploded in my mind. Grandpa knew. He foresaw that one day I would be driven into total despair. My heart pounded. A strange feeling crept in, warmth mixed with pain. I remembered Grandpa's deep, knowing gaze, as if he could see straight into my soul. He never spoke of money, only taught me about life. Now, this trust fund felt like a message from beyond the grave. With shaking hands, I broke the wax seal and began turning the pages. Numbers danced before my eyes, meticulously recorded. The total value, $12.5 million. A fortune I had never even dreamed of. It included $4 million in cash, $3.5 million in blue-chip stocks, a large commercial plot worth $3 million, and $2 million in a high-yield investment fund Grandpa had personally set up. With every page, my heart grew heavier. These weren't just numbers. They were a legacy. They were love. Proof that my grandfather had seen worth in me when no one else did. I turned to the last page. Tucked between the documents was a small, yellowed envelope. On the front, in Grandpa's familiar, shaky, but elegant handwriting, to Nathan, the grandson I was always proud of. My chest tightened. Proud of me? Me, the gentle, weak Nathan? My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter on thin, fragile paper that still carried the faint scent of old wood, pine, and the crackling radio from his cabin. I choked up the moment I read the first lines, reading aloud, my voice shaking so Mom and Uncle could hear. Nathan, if you are reading this letter, it means you are going through something no one else can help you with. Never forget, you are the only one in this family with the kindest heart. Don't let anyone crush that. I watched you grow up. I saw what you endured without ever complaining. You are not like your father or your brother. You have goodness. You have sensitivity. They lack. That is not weakness, Nathan. That is strength. I believe in you, Nathan. And one day you will be the one to save this family in a way no one expects. Use this gift wisely. Build the life you deserve. I am proud of you always. Grandpa Milton. By the time I reached the end, I couldn't hold it together. My eyes burned. My chest felt crushed. He believed I would save the family, the same family that betrayed me. Tears fell freely, splashing onto the page. I let the letter drop into my lap, hands shaking. All this time, I had thought I was alone. Dad turned his back. Jackson framed me. The world condemned me. But right now, I realized someone had believed in me long before everything collapsed. Grandpa had seen it coming. He had prepared an escape for me. In that instant, memories of him flooded back. Weekend visits to his small wooden house, filled with the smell of pine and his old jazz radio. The only place I could truly breathe. No yelling from Dad. No mocking laughter from Jackson. Grandpa would sit in his rocking chair, pipe in hand, smiling. Nathan, you're here. Tell me how your day was. I'd throw myself into his arms and pour out everything, being bullied, Dad telling me I wasn't man enough. He listened without judgment. He noticed things about me no one else did. One look, and he knew what sadness I was hiding. All he had to do was open his arms, and I became a little boy again, safe, loved. He taught me what my father never did, how to stand tall, how to keep kindness even when misunderstood. Sensitivity is not weakness. You have a heart stronger than anyone else in this house combined, Nathan, he once said, ruffling my hair. While the rest of the family saw me as weak, only Grandpa Milton saw what lay beneath. Resilience, decency, honesty. The very qualities he believed would one day become the brightest light. He used to tell me about his own life, how he started poor but built his modest investment fund through honesty. You'll do even greater things than I ever did, Nathan, he'd say. Now, this trust proved his words. He had prepared a future for me, knowing the family might one day fall apart. I sat there with the letter in my hands, tears falling unchecked. Those memories were sweet knives, cutting through the pain to reveal hope. Grandpa. He had seen me. He had loved me in a way no one else ever had. While my father and brother pushed me toward prison, Grandpa reached out from the grave with a way out. I turned to Uncle Jameson, my eyes wet but brighter than they had been in weeks, and pulled him into a long, fierce hug. Heavy, aching, but warm. A hug that said, all the humiliation, fear, and loneliness had finally been shared. He wrapped his arms around me. You're not alone anymore, Nathan. You and I, we're going to take everything back. Our lives, justice, and trust. Mom sat beside us, crying too, her hand resting on our shoulders. The living room felt warmer, even as snow kept falling outside. This trust fund wasn't just money. It was Grandpa's reminder from beyond the grave. You are worthy. You are strong. And you can start again. Immediately after the arrest warrants were issued, Vincent and Jackson were taken into custody. The news exploded. Police officer aided drug ring. Father and son garage bosses arrested inside courtroom. I sat at home, watching TV with Mom and Uncle Jameson. Every channel repeated the same footage, my father and brother in handcuffs. Federal task forces raided multiple locations. Dad's auto shop was sealed off. Cardboard boxes filled with those opaque white packets, drugs, dragged out under flashing cameras. Dozens in the network were arrested. Vincent's hidden accounts frozen. I watched it all on television, my heart shrinking. In the days that followed, the media swarmed. The darkest family scandal in Detroit in a decade. I didn't dare go outside. Afraid of neighbors' stares, afraid of reporters. Mom cried nonstop, flipping through channels. How could they do this to you? She whispered. Uncle Jameson stayed with us, sharing details from the investigation. Based on his testimony, federal agents reconstructed the entire money laundering operation. Drug trafficking from Mexico. The times Jackson manipulated evidence to frame others. Not just me, Nathan, Uncle said bitterly. But with you, it was the worst. My blood ran cold. Jackson, the hero with the badge, actually twisting the law. I remembered him telling stories of arrests. Now every word felt like poison. Months passed slowly, like a sluggish river carrying pain away, slowly easing the nightmares. The trial of Vincent and Jackson opened on a chilly spring day. The courtroom packed. Uncle Jameson, Mom, and I sat quietly in the back row, the three people most scarred by their crimes. I wore a simple shirt, clutching Mom's trembling hand. Uncle sat on my other side, face grim. The large courtroom felt suffocating. I looked at the defendant's bench. Dad and Jackson sat there, thinner after months in jail, faces gaunt, eyes avoiding the gallery. Vincent glanced at me for a second, his gaze full of anger, not a trace of remorse. Jackson kept his head down. My heart ached. They had once been my family. The prosecutor, the same sharp woman who had once accused me, stood and presented an avalanche of evidence. She played the video of Jackson planting drugs in my car. Crystal clear. Gasps throughout the room. This is evidence tampering and fabrication to frame an innocent person, she declared, her voice like steel. Next came financial records of money laundering, confessions from arrested members, and the climax, the recording of Vincent coldly saying, "Sacrificing Nathan is fine as long as we're safe." Mom buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Jackson tried to blame his father. "Dad forced me." Vincent fired back. He did it on his own. Their selfishness and lack of remorse were laid bare. No regret. Only desperate attempts to save themselves. Their defense attorney scrambled, but the evidence was overwhelming. I watched them, torn between rage and pity. Why wouldn't they admit it? Why not apologize? Mom cried silently the entire time. "Mom, are you okay?" I whispered, holding her tighter. She shook her head. I still can't believe. I can't believe they did this. Uncle Jameson placed a hand on her shoulder. "We have to be strong, sister." The trial lasted several days, each revealing more horrors. How many innocent people Jackson had framed? How many tons of drugs Vincent had moved? I listened, my heart frozen, flashing back to family dinners that now felt like lies. Finally, sentencing day. The courtroom more packed than ever. The judge stood, her voice grave. Vincent Reyes, 35 years in prison for money laundering, drug trafficking, and conspiracy to commit murder. Jackson Reyes, 28 years, for aiding and abetting, evidence tampering, and planting false evidence to frame an innocent person. The sentences rang out like thunder. The room erupted. Vincent and Jackson were cuffed and led away, faces pale and broken. Vincent struggled weakly. Jackson walked with his head down, silent tears falling. I watched them one last time. That was my father, my brother, now prisoners. After the verdict, the three of us stood and quietly left the courtroom. No words. Just walking side by side, each carrying our own wounds. Mom cried silently. Uncle Jameson sighed. I felt empty. Outside, reporters surged forward. "Nathan, how do you feel about your father and brother's sentences?" I turned away. Uncle Jameson shielded us. "No comment. Please give us space." The case became one of the biggest shocks in Detroit history. Not just for the scale of the drug ring, but for the family tragedy laid bare. I went home, shut the door, and collapsed. I took a deep breath of cold winter air, feeling as though I had finally stepped out of the last shadow of my old life. Behind me, the trial, testimony, sentences, betrayal. Ahead, a new life I never imagined. Freedom. The trust fund. And hope. The pain was still there, and I knew it would take a long time to heal. But for the first time, the future felt possible. Several months after the trial, my life slowly turned a new page. The first days were hard. I still woke up haunted by prison memories, by the cold eyes of my father and brother flashing across the TV screen. Public attention remained intense. Reporters still lurked. But I began to learn how to live again. With the enormous $12.5 million trust fund Grandpa had left me, Uncle Jameson, and I decided to start a private security and investigation firm. We named it Reyes Investigations, specializing in helping victims who had been wrongfully accused and cooperating with police on drug cases. We used part of the fund to rent a small office, buy surveillance equipment, and hire a few young investigators. I remember the first day we opened, standing outside, watching the sign gleam in the spring sunlight, thinking, this is the beginning. No longer the weak Nathan. Now I was the man standing tall, just as Grandpa had taught me. The company grew fast. Uncle, with his 3 years on the streets, tracked criminals and analyzed evidence. I, still carrying the raw pain of being framed, poured my heart into the victims, listening to their stories, arranging legal help, even holding them while they cried. We became an inseparable duo, one seasoned and scarred from ambushes, one resilient, forged in personal hell. Our first case was freeing a young man framed for drug possession, just like me. We obtained security camera footage proving he'd been set up, and the court released him. Word spread. Clients flooded in. Single mothers falsely accused. Business owners sabotaged. Revenue soared. One late night, after cracking a major case, Uncle clapped me on the shoulder. "Nathan, you did great. Your grandfather would be proud." I smiled, my eyes stinging. The company wasn't just work. It was how I healed, turning pain into strength, making sure others never suffered the hell I had. With the trust money, I bought a spacious new house. 2 stories, green garden, small pool, a bright living room overlooking a lake. I brought Mom, Camila, to live with me. After all the grief and collapse, we finally had a peaceful place to start over. She had lived too long in the old house, filled with horrific memories. When she stepped into the new house, her eyes lit up. "It's so beautiful, son. I never thought I'd live in a peaceful place like this again." We decorated, hung old photos of Grandpa, planted flowers, cooked simple meals. She began smiling more, telling stories of her youth, even joining a local yoga club. That house became a real home. No more shouting. No more cold stares. Mother and son healed each other, slowly letting the darkness fade. I also bought a smaller house for Uncle Jameson and his family when they returned from witness protection. After 3 long years in hiding, his wife Elena and daughter Lily were finally safe to come home to Detroit. The day they arrived, Uncle and I waited at the airport, hearts pounding. When Elena and Lily walked through the gate, Uncle Jameson ran to them and broke down right there in the terminal, tears streaming. Tears of joy after 3 years apart. I stood back, my eyes burning at the sight of their reunion. After everything we had endured, seeing his family whole and safe again, it was worth more than any money could buy. Time passed. The wounds slowly healed like deep cuts carefully bandaged. The company thrived. Mom grew happier. Uncle was reunited with his family. Everything felt like a brighter picture. I began sleeping through the night again, no longer tormented by prison nightmares or the flashing lights of that Christmas Eve. But the past still lingered. One day, I decided to visit my father and brother in prison. To close that chapter. To lay down the burden in my heart. The thought came suddenly one morning while I sat at my office desk, looking at Grandpa's photo. Save the family in a way no one expects. I called Mom. "Mom, I want to visit Dad and Jackson in prison. Will you come with me?" She was silent for a long time, then nodded. "Yes, son. We should go." To finish this. We prepared ourselves, my heart a mix of nerves and fear. This would be the first time I faced them since the trial, since learning the horrifying truth. Mom and I drove to the prison, a gray, forbidding complex. The air inside was cold and sterile. We passed through security and sat in the visitation room. My heart pounded. What am I doing? Forgive? Or face the pain one last time? Vincent, my father, was brought in first. He looked worn, gray prison uniform, unkempt beard, but his eyes still carried the same arrogant hardness. He sat across from us, picked up the phone, and stared through the smudged glass. "Nathan, what are you here for? To gloat?" His voice was harsh. No greeting. No warmth. Jackson followed, face gaunt, eyes red, hair messy. He sat beside Dad, glanced at me then. Looked down. The tension was unbearable. Vincent stared at me, then immediately launched into the same old script. "If you hadn't been so weak, if you'd been more like Jackson, stronger, tougher, none of this would have happened. I did everything for this family. I was framed, Nathan. I didn't do anything wrong. It was Jameson. My own brother set me up." He slammed his fist on the steel table. The clang echoed. Still no remorse. No apology. Just cold, shameless denial. I looked at him and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, just emptiness. I realized the man in front of me had never truly been a father. He had only ever used his children as tools. Mom sat silently, crying beside me, squeezing my hand tighter. Jackson was different. For the first time since his arrest, my brother looked up. His eyes were tormented, brimming with unshed tears. "Nathan, I was wrong. I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Dad manipulated me, but I should have stopped. I'm sorry. Sorry for what I did to you, for sending you to jail." The apology hung in the air, raw, sincere, and it twisted something deep inside me. Jackson, the idol who taught me to kick a soccer ball, who told heroic police stories, was now broken before me. I was silent for a long time, looking at the 2 men across the glass. One who would never take responsibility, still blaming the world and me. One who was finally facing his guilt, head bowed, tears falling. The visitation room felt frozen. Only heavy breathing and Mom's quiet sobs. Finally, I spoke, calm but firm. "I don't hate you anymore, Jackson. I forgive you, but I won't see you again. And to my father, Dad, live with the choices you made. This ends here." Vincent opened his mouth to argue, his face turning red, but no words came. He just sat there glaring. Jackson bowed his head, tears dripping onto the steel table, his voice cracking. "Nathan, thank you for forgiving me. I stood, placed my hand on the glass one last time, and told them I would live my own life now, free of their shadows. Then I turned and walked out, leaving behind a man who would never change, and another who was just beginning to pay the price. As the heavy iron door slammed shut behind me and I walked down the cold corridor, I felt lighter than I had in years. Like a 1,000-pound weight had finally been lifted. Mom walked beside me, wiping her tears. My son is so strong. We stepped outside into the cool spring breeze, and for the first time, I breathed deeply without pain. A new life lay ahead. Mom by my side. Uncle Jameson, my true family. A growing company. A wide-open future, backed by the trust fund. I thought of Grandpa's letter. You will save the family in a way no one expects. Maybe forgiveness was that way. I don't know. But I know this. I am finally free. A year after the case finally closed, my life had completely transformed. Like a storm had passed, leaving behind a clear blue sky. Reyes Investigations was now firmly established, with a long-waiting list of clients and a reputation that spread far and wide. I began speaking at community events, sharing my story to raise awareness about wrongful convictions and the dangers of drugs. At one anti-drug community seminar in downtown Detroit, I met Kay Grant, a young, warm-hearted social worker whose smile lit up the room and whose green eyes sparkled with genuine light. She stood on stage, talking about helping addiction victims. We don't just save their bodies, we save their souls. I sat in the audience, my heart stirring. She was speaking about healing, about hope after loss, just like my own journey. After the talk, I approached her a little nervous. Miss Grant, your story, it's a lot like mine. I was falsely accused of drug charges once, and now I help others in the same situation. She smiled, eyes lighting up. Nathan Reyes, I've read so much about you. You're incredibly brave. We talked for hours about our losses. She lost her father to addiction. I lost my family to betrayal. About our drive to heal, hers through social work, mine through investigations. We quickly discovered how much we had in common, like two missing puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. Our first dates, coffee walks in the park, were filled with butterflies. My heart raced when she laughed, when she held my hand and said, "Nathan, you're stronger than you know." Kay became the soft light that slipped into the darkest corners of my soul, helping me step out of the past and dare to believe in the future again. The following year, Kay and I were married in a small but love-filled ceremony, just close friends and real family, Uncle Jameson, Aunt Elena, Lily, and Mom. We held it in the backyard of our new home, under the warm summer sun, surrounded by roses Mom had planted. Kay walked toward me in a simple white dress, her eyes shining with happy tears. "Nathan, I love you for who you are. Strong from the heart." I slipped the ring on her finger, my voice trembling. "Kay, you're my hope. Together we will heal." The ceremony was simple but overflowing with laughter. No extravagance. Just pure warmth, the way a real family should be. When our first daughter was born, we named her Mila, in memory of Grandpa Milton. Our once quiet refuge after the storm now echoed with a child's laughter, sweet baby coos, and tiny feet pattering across the floor. Mila has her mother's green eyes and her father's gentle smile. Every night, I hold her close and whisper, "I'll protect you forever, my love." Mom Camila became the happiest grandmother, caring for Mila every day, singing her the same lullabies she once sang to me. "Grandma loves you, Mila. You are the new light of this house." Her wounds slowly faded beneath her granddaughter's giggles. Watching her cradle Mila, I thought, this is redemption. A new family making up for the old losses. The company Uncle Jameson and I built grew strong, like an ancient tree sprouting new branches after a storm. We partnered with the Detroit police, rehab centers, and charities to support victims of false accusations and abuse of power. Our reputation spread across Michigan. People came to us, carrying hope. We cracked major cases, freeing a teenager wrongfully jailed for drugs, helping women framed by ex-husbands. Uncle led the dangerous field work. I handled the emotional support. Newspapers praised us. Reyes Investigations, from victim to hero. I smiled when I read it, then turned to Uncle. "None of this would have happened without you." He clapped my shoulder. "Nathan, you are the soul of this company." From everything we had endured, Uncle Jameson and I founded the Break the Chains Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping people framed in drug cases, getting them out, into rehab, helping them rebuild, and giving them a second chance at life. We funded it with part of the trust, partnered with treatment centers, provided free lawyers, and offered job training. The foundation quickly took off, saving dozens of teens lost to addiction, mothers falsely accused. One case moved me deeply, a young man, just like I once was, framed by so-called friends. We got him clean and found him a job. He hugged me, crying, "Nathan, you saved my life." I cried too, thinking of the old me. The foundation became my legacy. Not just saving others, but saving my own soul. turning pain into purpose. That Christmas, thick snow fell over Detroit, but warm golden lights covered every corner of our new home, turning it into a glowing sanctuary. The whole family gathered. Uncle Jameson with Aunt Elena and Lily, laughing brightly. Mom, now a joyful grandmother. Kay, my wife, and little Mila, just learning to say Daddy in the sweetest lisping voice. We gathered around the table, the scent of roasted meat and cinnamon cookies filling the air. The Christmas tree sparkling with glass ornaments. No trace of that horrific night years ago. Laughter rang through the house. Lily playing with Mila. Aunt Elena telling cooking stories. Uncle Jameson roaring with laughter when Kay teased him about his old homeless disguise. I stood quietly for a moment, taking in every beloved face. The people who truly loved me. Without betrayal. Without selfishness. Suddenly, I remembered that Christmas Eve long ago. Handcuffs. Sirens. Flashing lights. My mother's sobs as I was dragged away like a criminal. Tears welled up, but not from pain. From gratitude. Now it was Christmas again, but I was surrounded by light, held in the arms of those who deserved to be called family, not by blood, but by love. I raised my glass, looking at the flickering candles on the table, and spoke, my voice low, but full of emotion. We cannot choose the family we are born into, but we can choose the family we keep. Never let the cruelty of others define your worth. And if life throws you into darkness, become your own light first. For a few seconds, everyone was silent. My words hanging in the warm air. Then soft applause broke out. Uncle Jameson looked at me with proud, misty eyes. Nathan, you've grown up. Mom wiped away tears and smiled. My son, your grandfather would be so happy. Kay squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, you are the light of my life. That Christmas night, I finally understood. The wounds that once tried to destroy me were the very things that made me stronger and led me to the real family I was always meant to have. Snow fell softly outside the window, but inside, warmth spread everywhere. And I knew my life had truly begun. What would you have done if your own family turned against you like that? I'm so curious to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let me know.